Hi YouTubers, I'm back for another YouTube video of what would have happened if this were in real life. RhinoTMRT gameplay series. I've been trying very hard to come up with an idea, which is kind of very obvious, seeing how it would make a lot of sense and how, well, yeah, I guess it would. And hopefully, it would be very obvious and all, and how, it would be very different. And, like how me and Shane were back at doing school lunch YouTube videos, but we need to, know when we're gonna start, how we're gonna start off with, all the other stuff. So, yeah, I guess that's that. So, this is the what would have happened if the Meet the Robinsons 2 were in real life. So we cut open to the beginning where Wilbur Robinson and all the other Robinson family members are all enjoying themselves, in which case you can easily tell exactly why. So that's how I'm going to start off so this is my sequel idea to the Meet the Robinsons movie, which of course I'd do that, seeing how I've already done the trailer reaction. So Wilbur Robinson and the Robinson family members are all enjoying themselves. And Wilbur Robinson, a much older version of him, an older Wilbur Robinson is actually opening up a school, a time traveling school, which of course is what the time traveling school is what Wilbur Robinson is opening, in which case this is actually very obvious. Well, after Wilbur Robinson saved time and saved the space-time continuum from the bowler hat guy from the Meet the Robinsons 1 movie. In the second movie, I'd have a different one. So a much so so older so old older so the older version of Wilbur Robinson and the Robinson family members have created the time traveling school, which is a place in which that can travel back in time. So yeah, technically they go. So technically, Wilbur Robinson is technically the founder and the Robinson time traveling school. So they eventually time travel to the dinosaurs and all the other stuff, and how it's very obvious. But then eventually, Wilbur Robinson once again actually creates another problem for time travel. Creates another time traveling problem by accidentally going back in time where Wilbur Robinson's where the Robinson time traveling school actually has some glitches within the place. And the person, that hat person from the I forgot it, the hat person from the first Meet the Robinsons movie actually comes back. So he actually comes back, yeah, in which that kind of does make a lot of sense. And then the logo for Meet the Robinsons 2, the glitch of the time traveling school, the logo of that appears. Then we cut open to Lewis from the Meet the Robinsons 1 movie, who as of right now is enjoying himself, who as of right now is enjoying himself and seeing how he has more ideas for the future. That is up until when a much older version of Wilbur Robinson actually goes back to the present and tells Lewis from the Meet the Robinsons 1 movie that he might be in grave danger from that hat thing from the Meet the Robinsons 1 movie. So yeah, this is exactly where that is. But then he said that it would be very obvious, and how it would be very different. Yeah, I guess it would seem very obvious, seeing how I've already done the trailer reaction to Meet the Robinsons. I figured, why not do the Meet the Robinsons, if they're, that, like, you know what I mean, right? So yeah, so Wilbur Robinson and Lewis eventually. So Lewis and Wilbur from the Meet the Robinsons one eventually. They both eventually go to their time. They both eventually go back into their time machine, and then they tell them that Doris from. And then they tell them that that hat person that hat person Doris from the Meet the Robinsons one is had returned because of a glitch that happened in the Robinson time traveling school. So yeah, they eventually so yeah so the hat person from the Meet the Robinsons one actually creates so many more of his, you know what I mean, right? So yeah, so that's exactly what it is. So I already know how I'm envisioning this. So and I'm actually envisioning it perfectly well. So Lewis and Wilbur, they eventually have to go back in time so kind of like how Doc Brown and Marty McFly, they had to find out which part of their time they had to go back to. Lewis and Wilbur have to find a way to head back to a certain point of time before the much newer future where, before that much newer one happens. So yeah, I guess that kind of does make sense. So they eventually go back and they eventually so Lewis and Wilbur, they actually end up finding, the other antagonist from the Meet the Robinsons one. He of course makes an appearance as well. He's never remembered anything, and then of course he usually would say that he does remember one time when a hat thing that was accidentally created by a scientist which of course would be Lewis's future self Cornelius, which of course would be created by them. In which case, this kind of does make sense. So once again, Doris actually Doris the hat person actually takes control of the other antagonist from the Meet the Robinsons too, and technically they both Lewis and Wilbur, they escape that big tower thing created by the that. So they eventually head back in time to warn their pets. So Lewis and Wilbur actually go back in time to warn their past selves that so they eventually go back in time to the same moment so the Lewis and Wilbur from the Meet the Robinsons 2 actually goes back to the goes back in time to meet the goes back in time to tell the Lewis and Wilbur from the Meet the Robinsons 1 before they left together that 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 a much older that the older version of Wilbur that his older version of Wilbur would actually create a time traveling school that would create a glitch that would accidentally create a glitch that would involve that hat person Doris from the Meet the Robinsons 1 to actually come back to life, which would accidentally do that. So yeah, so remember when Ted, met their other versions of themselves. Yeah, I'm kind of paying homage to that idea. I'm kind of for this idea, I'm actually paying homage to that for this idea of mine. Yeah, I actually am. So yeah, that kind of does make sense. And then the older version of Wilbur and Lewis from the Meet the Robinsons one, they eventually head back in time again. They eventually head back to the future, and they have this all, and then both Lewis and Wilbur, they combined all their they combined all their, like, all the people, all the people from, like, the past, present, and the future in an all-out a big fight and battle scene that to put an end to that Doors person from the Meet the Robinsons 1 movie. So yeah, they eventually do that. So yeah, it's the same two antagonists from the. So I'm using the same two. So yeah, I'm actually using the same two antagonists from the Meet the Robinsons 1 for the Meet the Robinsons 2, which is kind of a very great idea. So yeah, Lewis and Wilbur, and the Robinson family members, all of them eventually go against Doris the Hat person from the Meet the Robinsons 1, and of course the bowler hat guy, who of course they both go against them, and their army, and of course Doris the hat from, and of course Doris's hat army from a hat army, which of course is kind of very obvious. So yeah, they eventually go into a big fighting battle scene, and then Lewis and Wilbur, there are, like, and all the other Robinson family members, they all join forces, and they eventually have a big fighting battle scene, and then Lewis and Wilbur are actually easily find a way to get rid of the doors from the hat from Meet the Robinsons 1. So the idea is that if they can destroy this time traveling school, then it will suck out the doors and all the hat people, and then everything would go back the way it was. So Lewis and Wilbur tell the other Robinson family members that they have to keep all the other, keep all Doris and Bowler Hat guys, Hat Army, keep them, like, distracted, and then Lewis and Wilbur, they finally destroy the Robinson time traveling school, and then it sucks out, Doris and the bowler hat guy, and bowler hat guy, who eventually is brought back to his normal self, and of course they succeed in that. So yeah, then eventually the much older version of Wilbur Robinson actually brings back Lewis from Meet the Robinsons 1 back to his present timeline. They of course say their goodbye. Finally say their good, but finally say their official goodbyes. And then of course Lewis actually falls in easy, and then Lewis actually goes on that first date with his girlfriend from the film. So yeah, I guess that's that. So yeah, it all ends off with that, that date with Lewis and that other girl from the Meet the Robinsons 1, and they of course live happily ever after the end, and then the credits roll. Yeah, so that was my take on what would have happened if the Meet the Robinsons 2 were in real life. So yeah, I guess that's kind of that. So yeah. And that's it for today. Peace out. Bye bye.